Hey everyone, it's Samia Khan here with the Fox 10 News Now update. Joining me is Mia Garcia, who's doing a follow-up on our big story from yesterday, the murder-suicide in Scottsdale. I know you've been following this and you have new information, new interviews. Why don't you tell me what you've got?
All right, so we went back out to the scene this morning and we spoke to a worker at the construction site who had initially heard this woman. We now know her name is Sarah Drewer. Her little boy came running out of the house and was screaming and crying. These construction workers saw him, heard her screaming in the house, and so he says a couple of guys on the construction site ran over inside the house to help her while she was, I guess, being held there by her husband. He stayed back, didn't feel comfortable going in, but he saw the shooting. He saw this man shoot his wife outside, and his name is Doug Drewer.
All right, let's go ahead and listen to what the construction worker had to say.
Basically what happened was this little boy come running out there yelling help at the top of his lungs, screaming, and I could hear the mom in the background. And, as you're over here just going, man, what's going on? I told the plumbers just took off and ran into the house. I hear two shots because I seen them go in the house and they disappeared. But two shots were on the first gun. They took the gun away from him and they wrestled it away, come across the street, and took her and the little boy over here across the street to get her out away from him. And then all of a sudden you see him come out the house with another one. He had a .357 fully loaded.
What did you do?
I was standing
him with the gun?
I was standing here the whole time in the background by the fence, but as soon as I saw him come with that other gun, I booked over here and dove behind the dumpster right there, and then I kind of stood over here to the side, and here he comes across the street, and the guy with the white van, there's a guy in a white van that came around, he kind of just spun around and stopped right here.
Okay,
and,
yeah, I think we...
And as the boy, as the boy was on, the boy and the mom right there, he came over there and grabbed her, and I don't know if he pistol whipped her or what he did, in the back of the head, and basically I hear 4 gunshots, and freaked out. I kind of witnessed it. I seen it, second and right, as much as I could. I was already in horror as it was, and I was about ready to take off and run like for my life, and I did after I seen that, But
What about the little boy?
And what happened was the plumbers at first had tried to unload the other gun they'd taken away from him. Well, there's 4 clicks. You can hear 4 clicks. There was nothing in the chamber, but that's what happened right there. If they would have had a shot at him, I know the plumber would have never missed him. He said he would have never missed him. I talked to him about it and stuff. And we weren't allowed to talk amongst each other, but,
Did the little boy see everything?
Little boy saw the mother get killed, basically. That's what I got out of it, until somebody yelled, "Get the boy away," and I don't know who yelled it, where it came from, or, if it was the father, or if it was one of the plumbers, because everything happened so fast and so chaotic. You just didn't really catch who did it. So
His mom.
Wow. It must have been just so crazy to be witness to all of that.
I can't even imagine. A lot of times we do these stories where people ask, well, why do you cover these stories that are bad news?
Right.
But this story is important because it brings awareness to domestic violence, and there's a really big problem with this going on right now. And we started to investigate because we'd heard there was an order of protection, and that Doug Drewer had just been served on Friday, and then a few days later, or 4 days later, he ends up shooting and killing his wife. So we started looking into it, and we also talked to Sarah's one of her best friends. And what we understand is that she had a plan in place. According to her friend, she'd been in an abusive relationship for years.
Years. This wasn't a recent thing.
And had been working. She lost almost 100 pounds. She'd been working out at a gym. They call it her sanctuary. She lost 100 pounds. She'd been planning for this event, trying to do everything that was right up until the point where she got her order of protection on Friday.
So this was building up to something.
Yes, and her friend also says that they, not only did she move out of the house with her kids, she got her order of protection, it was served, and her close friends were also keeping track of her. Every 10 to 15 minutes they would text her, "Are you okay? Where are you? What exactly are you doing?" So what the friend tells us is that she knew at 8 o'clock yesterday morning when there was no response that something happened.
Right. And we heard about it.
Yeah, what we understand, Sarah went back to the house, which Doug wasn't allowed to go to the house because of the order of protection, but she went back in just to run in to get a few of the kids' things that they'd forgotten.
And he
was waiting for her.
So he wasn't living there either then at the time.
He'd been given that was one of the protected locations that he wasn't allowed to go. But from what we understand, she'd also moved out, fearful that he
would find her,
would come back.
Sure, and he was just sitting there waiting.
Yes. So it sounds like she did everything she was supposed to do, other than going back to the house.
Do we know how long they were married?
I don't know how long they were married.
Okay. And they had 2 kids. Okay,
well,
I have some of what the friend had told you. I have some of that, so I'm going to play that for our viewers now.
Plan in action, and it was a great plan. Unfortunately, this just didn't turn out the way she had planned. Things went tragic very, very quickly. But her plan was how the system has it set up. We got the order of protection on Friday. She followed the plan, and again, things got tragic very, very quickly. Yesterday morning when he appeared at her home, and unexpected, and unfortunately, Sarah's gone.
You said you were texting her every 15 minutes at least, or a group of friends, right?
Sarah had a group of 5 friends. We called them us the Dot, and we were all kind of included in this plan to help Sarah regain her life, from workouts to helping the children, whatever that looked like. And I'm sorry, what was your question?
You guys were texting each other to make
okay.
sure she was okay.
So our plan was to stay in touch with Sarah and text every 5 minutes, if not every 15 minutes. And from last Thursday till yesterday morning, up until just about 8 o'clock, we were all in constant contact with her and her safety and her whereabouts. And we lost contact with her about 10 minutes to 8 yesterday. And at 8 o'clock, we all, her best friends, knew something tragic had happened. The world lost an angel yesterday.
That must be so hard.
Incredibly hard. It's just heartbreaking to hear her story.
Right.
And there are, I'm sure, a ton of women who are going through this, and this just turned out so horrifically. I don't think, nobody thought it would turn out this way.
Right. If she even thought this was conceivable, she probably would have never entered the house. And at that point, you leave the city. You do whatever you can.
Exactly.
Because even if you leave the home, I'm assuming being in a, relationship for so long, certain whereabouts that she would eventually go to, whether it was the gym or I don't know if Sarah worked or not, but her friend's place. You know what I mean? So you'd literally have to create a whole new life if you knew that it was going to lead to this. And
exactly. I don't think they thought he would be angry. They didn't think it would reach this point.
And did they ever say what the anger was over, or what was it all just because she had filed this restraining order? Do we know any of
Well, as far as we understand, she just had endured years of abuse, according to her friends, and they say that he was cruel to her and abused her, and so she was a very quiet person, didn't talk much about it. They were trying to help her through this.
Right.
And the one thing she says, because I asked her, how can other women who are in a similar situation learn from this when you say that they did everything as planned? And the one thing she says is, I think we didn't think it would be this serious. That's
I'm going
Sarah.
to pull that up now.
Unfortunately, this just didn't turn out the way she had planned. Things went tragic.
And also, we were talking about, I was looking through photos of her, and there's a few photos that we found on her Facebook page, and she has some really sad eyes, which is also heartbreaking. And her friend said that's one thing about her, is you could tell in her eyes that maybe something was going on, and she was sad. But she tried to hide it from her friends for a long time and didn't talk much about it. Her friends are thinking about having a fundraiser for her or something to try and help the kids at this point.
Right.
She's got 2 kids. Her little boy is 6, and she has a girl a little older, and I'm not
I'm assuming
quite
that the girl
certain.
was at school when all of this happened.
At school. She stopped by to get something for the 6-year-old, I believe, before taking him to school. And that's when this happened.
Oh, wow.
And he witnessed the
The
whole
whole
thing.
thing. I mean, that poor 6-year-old.
It's horrific. Even a few years ago, we had another really, really horrible situation in Scottsdale, a murder-suicide. Well, actually, it wasn't a murder-suicide. It was an attempted murder-suicide,
Sure.
where a husband who was upset over a divorce actually killed his 2 kids and then tried to kill himself, but he didn't.
But not the wife.
No,
Just the kids.
to get back at his wife.
Right. When was that? This sound?
It was about 2 or 3 years ago. He went
Okay.
to trial, and I believe he was given the death penalty. Andre Ledevay. That was his. But it was also a horrific, sad story.
And then, I mean, I wonder, I'm just trying to think, I mean, obviously we won't have any answers, just what was going through the mind of this husband. If he obviously had the gun ready to attack her, was he always planning to kill himself too? Or is that just a response after, I mean, what?
What's interesting to note, Sarah's friend says that, from what she understands, when police served the order of protection on Friday, it was they thought it would be a surprise, but when they served him with the order of protection, she says he was completely calm, and police thought that was
Really weird.
interesting because normally men get angry, they want to know when they can get back in their house, what's
Sure.
going on, and he was just very calm and took it and surrendered the guns and left. He had, I think, 4 guns. But friend says he also kept 2 others in the house that he didn't give to police.
Right.
So it makes you wonder if he knew it was coming.
Which is one of the guns is the one that the witness probably took out.
Yes, there were 2 guns.
Right, and then he went back to get the other one.
And when I asked the witness, I don't know if we played that part where I said, did he say anything? And they said he just seemed very angry. On fire is, I think, the way the construction worker described it.
Wow. We actually just had some breaking news about a double shooting that Skyfox is heading over to right now. So we'll be bringing information on that. I'm like, wow, another double shooting. Here you go. It's just so hard to read about these things and hear about them.
It is. It is, but you can't. It's an important story to tell, and we also hear that some of these situations, domestic violence,
Right.
other women hear about this, makes them think this could be me.
Right.
And sometimes they do get the help after hearing these stories.
And it's one of those things where it's like no one, I think, goes into a marriage expecting this.
No.
You know, you don't anticipate that your spouse is going to change or they're going to, I don't know. It's just,
A vicious cycle.
well, thanks so much for the update. You will have,
Thank you, Sonia.
you'll have more on the story and more from the interviews
Yes, at 5.
at 5. All right, thanks
Okay,
so much,
thanks.
Mia. And I'm going to show you guys live aerial footage. I believe our chopper is heading to the scene of this double shooting right now. So let me pull that up for you guys, give a live look, and I will get some information for you guys as soon as it becomes available. Oh, wow, there you can see the scene. Oh, wow, you can see a number of cars involved in this. Going to get some information as to where this has happened. All right, I'm trying to get information on where exactly this double shooting occurred, but right now, this is live from the scene, a double shooting. You can see paramedic, you can see emergency crews working the situation. Lots of cars involved. Could be one of those situations. Undercover cops are involved. I'm not sure right now. All we know is that this is at 48th Street and Baseline in Phoenix. All right, I'm working to get more information on this story. Let me just send a message to our assignment editors real quick, and I will get some information for you guys. All right, what we know so far, again, this is 48th Street and Baseline in Phoenix, and it is a double shooting. I am working with our assignment editors to get more information. As soon as I get that, I will bring that to you. In the meantime, I actually want to tell you about a bill, this photo radar bill involving red light cameras. The state Senate has been discussing this issue today, and I have some new information on that as well. All right, sorry about that. We've been having some issues with some of the videos, but this is the video of this red light cameras. Now, what we know so far, a bill may go into effect involving the removal of red light cameras in terms of its use in citations. Now, the senator behind this bill, Kelly Ward, spoke with Fox 10's Mark Martinez earlier this morning, and here is what she had to say.
First of all, what was your reason for sponsoring this bill, SB 1167?
1167 is very important because I think it's a constitutional issue. Our right to privacy, our right to face our accusers are taken away by cameras doing law enforcement rather than sworn officers.
Someone brought up a point, I'm not sure if it was you, saying that an officer has discretion, and that's an important part of law enforcement.
Yes, I think there were many people who discussed that during committee today, during quite a lengthy testimony there, and it is true. The cameras have no discretion. You're over by 0.1 second and you get a ticket. Officers, if you get pulled over, if they even pull you over for turning left on a yellow, can ask you what's going on, or they could also find out if you might be committing some other crime, driving under the influence, something else. Cameras can't do that.
All right, I will bring you more from that interview in just a little bit, but I want to go back to these live photos, and I will get back to that bill shortly. But again, this live video from 48th and Baseline in Phoenix, where this double shooting occurred. This is aerial footage that we have courtesy of our Skyfox chopper above the scene. Our assignment desk working to get information right now. What we know so far, double shooting. You can see that the windows of that car in the middle is shattered. You can see that's possibly shattered due to bullet holes. We don't have any sort of definitive information right now, but we are working to get that for you as soon as possible. All right, it looks like we have lost that footage from the scene. Okay, just kidding. We have the scene footage. Again, this is live aerial footage of a double shooting around 48th Street and Baseline Road. All right, this is a live look again at a double shooting from the scene, 48th Street and Baseline. I actually want to switch things up. I'm going to head over to a press conference being held by an official with the National Transportation Safety Board in regards to the train crash that occurred in New York yesterday evening.
Day, doing the work, and then in the afternoon they can debrief me so I can debrief you, and that's usually why they're fairly late in the afternoon. You can find out when those media briefings will be by watching us at Twitter, following us at Twitter. Our handle is @NTSB, or you can look at our website for press releases at ntsb.gov. Now, I'll be glad to take questions. What I'd like to ask, if you would kindly raise your hand when I call on you. Please state your name and your affiliation. We have a lot of hands. Sir, Mr. Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Sumwalt. It's early, but is there any indication that the crossing signals or crossing arms were not working properly?
The question is there any indication that the crossing arms or signals may not have been working properly? At this point, we have no indication to believe that they were doing anything other than operating properly. However, our investigation is just beginning, and we are looking at that information very carefully. So there's a question here.
Paul Beeben from Al Jazeera. This is not the first time that Metro North has come under this kind of scrutiny. They've been under tight scrutiny for a series of crashes. Is enough being done, generally speaking, to make this railroad safer?
The question is concerning the prior accident history of Metro North, and is enough being done to ensure safety? And I want to point out that, yes, the NTSB did release a report the third week in November, a special investigation report about the organizational issues with Metro North. I believe those issues at the time that report was issued was valid, but I also want to caution that there may be no relationship between those issues that we found in that special investigation report and this accident. So I think that's the salient point there, is that here it appears that a vehicle was on the track and the train ran into the track. So I would be very cautious in trying to draw a nexus between what's happened with Metro North in the past and what may have happened yesterday. We'll come here.
Jessica Schneider, WCS TV. You mentioned looking for witnesses, finding any video they might have. You seem to mention maybe surveillance video somewhere around. Have you seen any video that would give you any better indication as to what happened?
Have we seen any video that might give us a good indication of what happened? And at this point, I'm not aware of any video that surveillance video that may have come forward. However, again, this accident was less than 24 hours ago. It was about 23 hours ago, and oftentimes we do find within the days following the accident that there are surveillance videos that we didn't even know about. So we are looking for that, and that's why we've asked for the help of the public to identify such topics. Alan Levin.
Mr. Sumwalt, could you go again through the scenario where the third rail went through, so stay in that, please.
So the third rail, of course, the railroad tracks, and tomorrow we're going to try and have a map for you to show you all of this. But the question is, can I describe better about the scenario of the third rail penetrating the rail cars? The third rail, we've got a north-south running track. The Harlem line, of course, was the train was running north. To the west of the railroad track is the third rail. It appears that at the time that if this would be the railroad track and this would be the vehicle, it appears that this third rail lodged into the back left of the car at an angle, came out of the car at the right side above the wheel, above the back right, rear right tire. So it's at an angle, coming from this high off the ground to this high off the ground. So it's at an angle, and it continues that trajectory and actually strikes just in front of the first set of train wheels. So there's a lot of mass with those wheels, which further leverages this in an upward direction. So as the train is moving down the track, this third rail is just basically lodging into, in 80-foot sections, lodging into and breaking apart section by section, 80-foot sections, section by section, just basically piling up inside that first train car. And finally, at least one of those third rail segments penetrated through into the second car at a very high, almost at the ceiling level. So, Alan, I hope that clarifies it, and if not, we can have some follow-up questions. There's a question here.
Hello, Ida Siegel from WNBC. In line of what you just said, we've had a number of other commuter rail accidents involving a train hitting a car, and to my knowledge, no other train passengers have died in those accidents. Would you then characterize this accident as particularly dangerous, troubling? How would you characterize this accident in light of that fact?
We do have grade, the question is, we do have grade crossing accidents. Oftentimes most of the time, it's fatal for the occupants of the vehicle, the car, the truck, but not for the train passengers. And that is a true statement. Usually it does not cause, we have seen Merriam, Nevada just a few years ago, as an Amtrak train where a truck ran into the side of an Amtrak train. But you're right, usually it is not endangering the occupants of the train. We intend to find out what makes this accident different. What was it that made this different that caused this to be fatal to 5 people on board that train? That's really going to be the heart of it, is the survival factors issues. 2 big questions: why was the car on the train tracks, and what caused this accident to be fatal for occupants of the train? There's a question here.
Sir, thank you. Josh Hunter, WABC. After the spike in divals around, it became clear through your reporting that the MTA, Metro North, had not invested in a whole slew of technology that could have prevented that crash. The positive control, the dead-man switch, what have you. Does there exist in the world technology that could allow the engineer of the train to know there is an obstacle in his path before he sees it before it's too late to stop? And if so, should the MTA, should Metro North already have it in place?
The question is there technology available that would allow an engineer of a train to be able to see an obstacle on the track before it might become even visible to the naked eye? And honestly, Mike, yes or no?
Not proven technology.
So, right. I mean, I've been studying rail accidents for 8.5 years, and I'm not familiar with that technology. Mike's been in the business for 25 years plus, and this is the first I've heard of that. we have been a long advocate of positive train control, which we believe will prevent a lot of accidents. But this type of an accident, I don't believe there's technology that's out there.
Just to follow up, is there basically no way to stop a grade crossing accident like this if the engineer doesn't see the car?
So can you stop a grade crossing accident? We certainly believe that grade crossing accidents can be prevented, and that's why we're here. Our entire purpose for being here. We're not in the business of pointing fingers, laying blame, assigning fault. We're here for one reason, and that is to find out what happened so that we can keep these things from happening again. So yes, grade crossing accidents can be prevented. We've issued recommendations in that area, a number of recommendations over the last few years. So yes, they can be prevented. This one we want to find out, just as I mentioned earlier, what made this one different than others? So I'll take one last question, and we'll go, let's see where we'll go. We'll go right over here in the red. Hi.
I was wondering if you had at this point play-by-play of what happened when the driver entered the crossing gate, the railroad crossing, why she wasn't able to either back out or drive forward, exactly what happened.
Can you say whether she was in the car or not?
Okay. Do we have a play-by-play of if the driver got out of the car? We've heard reports of perhaps she had gotten out of the car and things like that. Do we know if she was in the car at the time of the collision? And what we intend to do is to put together that very play-by-play. We want to put together a timeline to understand, and I think that we can do that with a number of things. The event recorders will help us. Any video evidence we may have. I understand that there's a gentleman who was directly behind the SUV when the accident occurred. So we believe, I'm confident that we will be able to put together a good timeline of this event. One of the things we'll be doing too is a sight distance test to see that if you were stopped on the tracks, at what point could you be able to see a train, and the opposite of that, at what point could the engineer of the train be able to see a stopped vehicle? I want to thank you for your attention. We will be providing you information as we learn it. Eric, I think you have a few things to say. Thank you all very much.
You can follow us on Twitter. Our hashtag is @NTSB. And you also follow us at...
All right, we are going back to the scene of this double shooting on 48th and Baseline. This is live aerial footage. I have brought John Hook with me.
Good to see you all.
To discuss the latest shooting. We don't really have a lot of information right now other than it is a double shooting.
It's the first time hearing about it, by the way. You're ahead of me.
You're going to be talking about it later on in the 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I want to show you these images
I'm working on
right
a story
here.
right
You can
now.
see the images right here. If we look at this camera right here, you can see the situation right there.
What's happened in the roadway?
Yeah, right there. So there's a car.
Traffic altercation?
I don't believe so. Right now we see a car in the center and then multiple cars surrounding it.
Police shooting?
I'm assuming
Undercover operation?
That's what it looks like, right?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, they boxed somebody in and tried to execute an arrest.
It appears because it's all of these vehicles boxed around.
Well, it's a lot of unmarked stuff there, though, isn't it?
Right, and then but the vehicle that's in the middle of all of these cars, the back window completely shattered glass we saw earlier. We did see that there was a victim. Right now we've been being told it is a double shooting. As far as what I've seen on camera, there was a victim on the ground, may have been the suspect, not sure, and that person was taken into an ambulance. Okay. Not sure on their condition just yet, but...
this is where?
48th and Baseline.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is 48th and Baseline is Phoenix PD?
Phoenix, yep.
Okay.
That's 48th Street and Baseline.
You know, this stuff, by the way, goes on every day, all the time, of trying to execute warrants on somebody, and sometimes they grab them in traffic, or you can have undercover operations that are happening with drug deals, with all kinds of different things. So a lot of this stuff happens, and we never know about it, obviously, until something goes wrong, somebody's shot and killed. But it's dangerous stuff, very dangerous.
I know. I mean, I feel like this stuff is happening a lot. I feel like just in the last few weeks, there's been at least 2 or 3 similar stories that involve shootings and undercover police vehicles.
Well, this is what I mean. They're out there all the time, and we never, we don't know about it, but it's happening. Thank goodness it's happening, because they're getting a lot of bad guys off the street with a pretty good record of getting them. So.
Right. So obviously,
Who do we have on the ground out there?
In terms of reporters?
Yes. Do
I
you know
actually
who's on
don't
the way?
know who they've sent because this has been happening as I've been on deck here. I haven't been told whether, I'm assuming they're sending a reporter out there.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Probably
but
so.
I'm not sure who.
I would bet it's Rick Davis right now.
Right.
He's on his way.
I'm sure we'll be getting information from the ground shortly.
It's tough from that vantage point to really get an idea what's going on because it's still too far away. I can't really see up close. Have they pushed in at all?
You might be zooming in. They did zoom in earlier.
That's a lot of vehicles stopped there.
Right. I wonder if I can call our desk and ask them. They could say talk to the chopper directly, right? They're able to tell them to zoom in or zoom out.
If all of these cars are in the situation they were in when this all happened, because they may be talking to witnesses and pulled people out of,
right.
Everybody stopped kind of frozen in time where everything happened. So you may be getting vehicles that were just witnesses so that they can interview them and they can establish positions of all the cars to recreate exactly what happened.
Right. I think, and I'm being told that I believe the desk has sent out Jessica Flores to the scene. So Jessica will definitely have an update in the 5:30, 6.
Okay.
Right. Yep. So that's what we know so far. Obviously, anyone driving in the area should avoid the area, take an alternate route. Roads.
And we're getting, we're heading into...
You can see that whole intersection. There's police tape surrounding the intersection, so there's no way to really go. What about these cars right here?
Well, Baseline's also a pretty crowded artery coming off of I-10 as well.
Right.
So.
But, okay, so then these cars, so we have all the cars that are on the, north, I guess the north side of this image that we're looking at. It would be the
west side.
The west side, right up there. And that's surrounding the car that had what it appears to be the gunshots. Mm-hmm. But then the cars on the other side of the road, are they just parked there? Or do you think those are witnesses that were taken out?
I'm not sure exactly what's happening here.
Sure.
It's an odd-looking scene, though, to me. It looks a little strange with all those cars clustered.
Right.
So as we learn more, we'll pass it on to you. It's tough. You end up into kind of wild speculation on these things if you're not careful. So.
Right. Well, as soon as we get that information, obviously, if I get it during news now, we'll update you guys.
We should see, if I've got my bearings right, I think we're going to see I-10 here come off to the left of your screen as Sky Fox rolls out of here. I believe that'll be the case. I'm not positive.
Waiting.
Let's see here. Because the chopper flips around and sometimes you get your bearings
So this would be close to Tempe then, if I have my map correct. I've learned the roads in my 3 months.
Yeah, South Tempe.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we'll keep a picture of that up.
Right.
And, now, you wanted to talk about ISIS.
I did, yeah. I did want to talk about ISIS.
Well, it's interesting. I wanted to talk about it as well because I think it's really interesting that we had spoken about this yesterday.
Well, it's almost like you predicted what was going to happen in D.C.
I thought that this might be a bridge too far for moderate Muslims to watch this carnage, this guy being burned alive. If this is all true, we believe it is.
Jordan wants a war. Jordan wants to fight.
Jordan... we give them a lot of money. They are the most stable, probably, of those countries. Israel, of course, is. But
did I read that they were getting $1 billion in aid?
They do.
Yeah,
they get $1 billion a year from us. So, in economic aid. So it's important. I think we were talking yesterday. Would this be a moment where moderate Muslims rise up and different nations rise up and say, "We have got to eradicate this"?
Yeah, I mean, in this situation, especially because. Like we talked about yesterday, here's the victim. The victim is a 26-year-old guy.
Airman from Jordan.
Right.
But he's striking ISIS targets.
He is striking them.
So you're now Muslim on Muslim, right?
Right.
You've got extremists who are fighting with ISIS.
Sure.
You've got a Jordanian pilot who's Muslim dropping ordnance on these guys. You can see that this is a toxic brew that's developing here.
Right. Have you I believe there's an interview out right now, or the French journalist that was held captive there and released by ISIS, he's been going around and talking to a lot of national media outlets. Have you heard about anything that he said?
I've not.
Okay, so I talked about it this morning a little bit with Ron, but he was talking about his experience being held as a captive by ISIS.
How did he get released, by the way? Did they pay a ransom for him?
No. This was him and like 5 or 6 others were left, I think, like they were bound and like left on the side of the road, something like that. But this was before everything had gotten so intense. He really believes
most of these guys are not getting out of there.
There's no way he would have ever gotten out.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
If it were now,
Right.
But he was talking about what it was like in there, and he was talking about how they were beaten, but it wasn't an everyday thing. He was talking about the attitude of American James Foley, the first person who was beheaded. And he was talking about how he had such a good heart, and he was so positive. And he was the one person who, in a subtle way, would still defy these ISIS members. These ISIS members
in a clever way.
Right. He would come around and ask if they needed anything or whatever, and everyone else would say no. And Foley would basically say like, oh, well, could you get us some vegetables and add it to our diet? And what this French journalist was saying, I think the thing that upset these ISIS leaders was that they couldn't break Foley. They couldn't break his spirit. And he just talked about how good of a heart he had. But the one interesting thing...
Foley taught here.
He did.
I believe he taught here. He's the one who taught here in Phoenix. Phoenix Unified, maybe. He was a teacher here.
Oh, I didn't
before
know that.
he became a journalist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
He has roots here. Yes.
Wow.
Apparently an amazing guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, he seemed like, when the parents came out, the whole thing was just so tragic. And obviously him being the first video to ever be released at the time, it was just like,
well, let me read you something here.
Okay.
This is interesting. Okay, so yesterday you've all seen the video. Well, let me first preface that. I haven't seen the video because I don't want to see the video.
Yeah, I don't look at it
This is something
either.
I don't really want to put in my brain. I've had it described. I've read accounts of it. I know what's on that video. I don't need to. I don't really want to see it.
Right. I'm with you.
And I'm usually not that way about this stuff, but for some reason, this is something I don't want to put in my world if I can avoid it. So this yesterday was so over the top by all accounts. This dramatic presentation of a guy being burned in a cage, burned to death, that this prominent preacher with close ties to jihadi groups, he said Islamic State militants miscalculated if they hoped these images of the pilot's agony would galvanize greater opposition to a U.S.-led military coalition that's been bombing targets of the group. After millions of Muslims were cursing every pilot in the coalition with this act, they have made the burned one into a symbol, he wrote on his Twitter account. So now you've got even somewhat radicalized Muslims saying, even this, for us, is too far.
Right.
This is too much.
And going back to what that French journalist was talking about, but the things that happened inside when they were under control, he emphasized the takeaway was the fact that these ISIS guys just wanted power. At the end of the day, he was like, they never, if they're fronting like they want to radicalize people or have them believe what they believe, he was saying that's untrue. They never taught us anything. There was no Quran inside. It was really about just having control over the situation. And Ron Hoon and I talked about this earlier this morning. Just ISIS makes Saddam Hussein almost look like a saint, relatively speaking, in terms of the way that the people there were being treated, because what this French journalist was saying is like beyond just how the captives were being treated, their own Syrian people just being abused, being killed. He saw them lying in their own blood.
Sure.
So it's just
it's
you're just like
barbaric.
treating your people. It's just like you're terrible.
Anybody with any sense is going to see this and say, look, is this really what we want for ourselves?
No, I mean, but it's like you're not even who would want to be under that?
Well,
control?
it's become a collection now of misfits and weirdos, frankly, who are gravitated toward this kind of thing.
Sure.
I mean, they have become a collect-all for, they're recruiting people who are really on the edge and really not stable. You got people with nutty agendas out there, and
maybe
who
not
think
all
this is
mentally
appealing.
there, right?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. John McCain weighed in on this.
Right.
He's the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, as you know. He said he expected his panel to swiftly approve legislation that would give aid to Jordan in this effort to fight this. But he repeated his criticism that the Obama administration has no strategy for dealing with the Islamic State group, and said he hoped the video of this death will galvanize not only U.S. leadership, but the Arab world.
Right.
And that's the hope. If you get the Arab world on board to say, we have got to stop this, that is probably the best thing that can come of this.
Well, obviously, I mean,
act.
all of the Jordanians are, everyone had marched to the king's palace demanding, a war, essentially. Just let us go fight ISIS. And I feel like if Jordan's on board, I at least think if you get Jordan on board, you might be able to get like Saudi Arabia on board too.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, there are going to be people who will resist. Jordan, again, is a pretty reliable ally of ours, so they may be a little more prone. As you saw, United Arab Emirates, they've pulled back on airstrikes. So you have some fractionalizing going on right now about whether we're in, whether we're out.
Right, with the UAE, them being fearful that their own people could be harmed in a similar way.
And believe me, you're going to have, you may have some of our strong allies starting to come to the same conclusion.
But I just think that even if the UAE wasn't involved in airstrikes, hypothetically, and they had one of their citizens in that region, I just feel like ISIS is out to get everyone, to be honest.
You asked yesterday, what do they want? What's the agenda? And I think it's almost hard to articulate unless you want some strict, perverted interpretation of the Quran. And if you're going to go that way, I mean, we have women basically in bondage again. We have, they're not producing anything. They're not creating anything.
It's really like a wanting to take over just the world. Like they just want to take over. It's
fighting any kind of move toward westernization.
Right.
They are just, I think they look at us culturally and think we are completely crazy here.
Right.
Yet the pilots, we talked about this before during 9/11. The pilots who flew those planes into buildings, all for the sake of a very strict interpretation of Islam, were here when they were here. Were going to strip clubs in Florida while they were pilot training. They have pornography in their place. They had pictures of naked girls around that they would hide when they were praying. I mean, there was so much. They were drinking alcohol.
Right.
There was so much duplicitousness going on.
Right, and that's, I think, what should upset moderate Muslims right now. It's this stealing of identity.
Hijacking the religion.
And literally, that's what it is. It's like you guys aren't even... You're taking whatever part... You're making up this idea of what you want to believe, and yet disregarding everything that's actually there, and destroying people's lives, and using religion as a way to do so, and then making everyone look bad. It's just it's not a good situation. I don't know.
Well, I think what you're getting now is figuring out whether these nations, how much they will get on board behind this effort.
Right.
Jordan can't do it by themselves. That's pretty clear. And the question is,
and
again, we talked about this yesterday.
Right.
To really eradicate, it's pretty clear you need ground troops to do this.
Well, is it going to be France that gets involved? The U.S.? I mean, everyone. The UK.
The question is, would the U.S. and I don't see it with President Obama I don't see him going down the road of wanting to put U.S. troops back.
But what if
in the Middle East somewhere? I just don't see him going that way. He has made it part and parcel to try to pull us out of there. Mm-hmm. So I don't see him going in reversing course. I don't see it. I see us playing delay and try to let it evolve without our intervention.
Right, but as far as we know, ISIS keeps acquiring more land, right?
Well, they're terrifically well funded, and so the amount of mischief they can create is great, and they have the ability to carry it out. So far, knock on wood, we've been somewhat isolated from this here, but you can see it's happening in other countries, and we talked about it yesterday. I think it's a matter of time before we're struck again.
Right.
Because we cannot protect every soft target out there. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually have some sound from John McCain earlier that I wanted to play.
I want to hear it.
So let's pull that up right now.
All members of the committee, we'd like to extend our deepest condolences to the family of the brave Jordanian pilot brutally murdered at the hands of ISIL. Together with his family, the Jordanian Armed Forces, and the people of Jordan, we mourn the loss of a hero that has galvanized the nation and the world.
I mean...
Wow, galvanized the nation and the world. Mm-hmm. It may have started. I don't know that that's quite happened yet, but it's starting. We'll see. We'll see if this has legs.
So, and side note, this is completely unrelated, but are the use of ISIS and ISIL just completely interchangeable?
Yes.
What does the L stand for?
We'll have to look this up. You have different. The White House likes to use ISIL. A lot of commentators and others use ISIS, but it's the same group we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually want to go back to this double shooting for a second.
Do we have more information?
48th
Any
and
information on this?
Well, we do have new information in the sense that we know that no officers were involved, and we
Good.
just got Instagram video
From
a witness to the shooting.
From
who
Rick
told
Davis.
And you said Rick Davis
There
was
you go.
out there.
He's our
so
guy.
You knew it. So I'm going to pull this up, and once I cue this, I'm going to share this with our viewers. Right here.
Crazy. It was a lot of shooting, so I wasn't quite sure where the bullets were going. So just because I didn't know where they were going, I just duck and stay down. Crazy. It was a lot of shooting, so I wasn't quite sure where the bullets were going. So just because I didn't know where they were going, I just duck and stay down.
All right, as you can.
Okay, so I wonder if she was in one of the. I wonder if she was in one of the cars.
Right. It would.
But look
seem
at that
so.
picture. I mean, that is.
Right.
There's a lot of cars involved in that. That is
Mhm.
really an odd-looking scene. It looks like they boxed in that one car for sure.
Right.
With the blown-out window in the back, the black car right in the middle of all that.
Mm-hmm.
Now that could be one
Right
of two
there, you can
things.
see-
That could be, you know, the person apprehended shooting out the back window at the people following,
Mhm.
or it could be the officers firing through that back window.
Right.
So we'll sort all that out, and we probably won't know all of this for a while. But they have a pretty good idea, I'm sure, on the ground, those who were there, as to what happened.
Right. So, but we do know that no officers involved in the shooting.
It's good news.
So that's always good to hear.
That we don't need because we've had a lot of that in the past year anyway.
I know.
So
It's never ending.
so that's 48th Street and Baseline.
Mm-hmm. And we will
Okay,
have more
South Tempe.
updates in our newscast because Jessica is out there.
Okay. Okay.
On the scene, and I think
I'm clear?
We got our ISIS chat in. I
Okay,
think.
yeah. Well, I think the bottom line in the takeaway from that is that could these guys have overreached with that last video? I mean,
Mhm.
you would think beheadings would be enough where the world would cry out and say,
Right.
we can't tolerate this. But after a while, the beheadings became,
It didn't become news anymore, almost because it was so.
this is what we talked about
Routine.
yesterday, how humans have an amazing ability to adapt.
Right.
That was shocking the first time with James Foley.
Right. It was
Terribly
the
shocking,
worst
obviously
thing.
tragic every time, unnecessary, insane.
Mhm.
But after 4 or 5 of those, and I'm sure these guys, they are very media savvy, as you know. They're on the
Mhm.
internet. They're all over the place. They are
Right.
very savvy in how they get their message out there.
Right.
They probably realized, this isn't getting it done. We're going to have to ratchet it up.
Right.
And they did yesterday. And now it appears to have backfired.
Mhm.
So this is, again, sometimes you get these things that happen and you think, man, this is awful. And then there's some silver lining in there. And that may be that the world community is going to galvanize against this.
Mhm. Well, we will continue to watch this, and I'm going to have you on here more often because I know you're very knowledgeable about this topic, and you sit right there. So it's
I
easy
know,
to
I'm
just
an easy-
grab
I'm an
you.
easy mark.
It's like, who's the closest? You are the closest on-air talent to me. You know that, right? Look
Well,
around.
you use that term loosely, talent, on-air
Look,
talent.
on-air talent. Who do I have? You are my closest target
Well,
right
you
here.
could grab Sean. Sean's always ready for a good scrap. Diana, she'll come on at a moment's notice. Mark, we got a bunch of producers here who will absolutely, they'll move the needle. I guarantee
You
it.
know what? I love them, but they have 5 o'clock shows to,
I know.
I can't
Are you
steal
saying I
them.
don't work?
No, you do work, but I think that with our higher ups, it's easier for me to steal you than them.
Look at they're laughing. I know I don't work as hard as you guys. I get it. I understand. I know where my place is in this newsroom. Good times.
All right, I have a favor.
right. Yeah,
Can you do
what?
me a huge favor? Can
Yeah, what
you
do you
just
need? Your
grab
coffee?
Andrew? Oh no, I have coffee
Okay,
here.
all right.
I just need Andrew Hasbun because
Yeah,
I can't
let
make eye
me
contact.
find out where he is.
He's right. Should be behind there. I am going to give you guys an update on the measles. Yep. Andrew Hasbun, Fox 10's very own, has been following a developing measles story in regards to schools, and also has some details on the death of a child, the first child of this year to die from the flu. So as soon as Andrew gets here, he can tell you more about it because I just know the gist of the story, and he is the reporter who knows all the details. Hello.
So, what are we talking about?
I was just telling them, I was giving them a vague idea of your story, measles, and then you got some information on the flu death as well.
The reason why we're talking about this today is a student at Kiva Elementary in Paradise Valley, a relative of the student, not the student, a relative of the student, is suspected of having the measles. So
right.
out of an abundance of caution, they're kind of letting parents know that a relative may have the measles. Obviously, it's very contagious.
Right.
So, think about if the student gets it, brings it to school, they just want to let everybody know. It's definitely an abundance of caution here. There's quite a disconnect, but they just want to make sure that there's no problems, nothing's going on. And actually, the Maricopa County Department of Health has told us today that because of everything that's going on with measles, they've seen a big increase in suspected cases. They've told doctors, if there's a rash type, that the symptoms of whatever a kid may have is some kind of a rash, fevers, the measles symptoms, to be on the lookout for measles, and so that's why there's all this. I wouldn't call it paranoia, but definitely people being extra cautious.
Right, you have to be. I mean, we were never talking about no one was talking about measles 2 months ago.
Definitely not. But the vaccine is so effective, 99% effective, if you have the vaccine.
Right, and that's become this huge topic
Yes.
in D.C. Locally, everyone has an opinion on this
Today,
now.
the State Department of Health released a bunch of numbers talking about measles vaccination levels in schools across the state. It is required. Schools require you to have a vaccine to go to school. However, in Arizona, you can have a medical exemption or a personal beliefs exemption. So for the personal beliefs exemption is pretty wide open.
Right.
I don't agree
I
with
just
this.
believe that it's a personal belief.
The
It's not even a
vast
religious
majority,
belief.
though, the vast majority of people get the vaccine for their kids.
Mhm.
So in Maricopa County, this is according to the latest numbers that the State Department of Health just put out, 5.1% of students, kindergartners in Maricopa County have a personal exemption. So we can just only assume that they did not get the vaccine. They're exempt from having it. They're still allowed to go to school, but they're exempt from having it. That's Maricopa County kind of falls in the middle of all the counties.
Right.
The highest is Yavapai at 11.6%. So that's 1 in 10 kids
crazy.
don't have or are exempt from getting the
But
measles
Yuma,
vaccine.
everyone pretty much in Yuma.
Yes, and then the total is almost about 5%,
Sure.
which according to the State Department of Health is the best level it's ever been. Highest
Here
it's been
in
for
the
years,
state, right.
in the state. So those are the highest levels of vaccination in a long time. But still, if you look at Maricopa County, that's 1 in 20 kids don't have
That's
the
almost
vaccine.
one
These are
in almost
kindergartners.
every classroom, because how large are public
Exactly.
school, how big are the classrooms here? What, 20, 30 students, I'm assuming?
Exactly. So we're talking in Maricopa County, 55,000 kindergartners, and 5% of them are exempt from the vaccine for personal reasons.
Right.
There's a medical exemption too, but those numbers are really small.
Right.
They're very minor cases. So and that school, Kiva Elementary in Paradise Valley, Scottsdale Unified Schools, they break it down. The State Department of Health breaks it down by school too. Kiva Elementary's, the kindergartners, about 2.4%, I think it was, have a personal exemption for the vaccine. So there's a lot of data out there, and it's actually really fascinating.
So, sorry, to go back, the child whose relative may have the measles, has that child been vaccinated?
They rarely talk about people's medical histories.
So we don't actually
don't actually know.
Okay.
Chances are, if someone's concerned about it, they probably aren't.
Didn't.
Because the vaccine is so effective, if you have it, you really don't have very much to
You wouldn't
worry
have to
about.
alert all these parents
exactly.
if it were an issue. If it
I
wasn't
mean, that's
an issue.
just assumption, though. We don't know.
Right.
They rarely release that kind of information. And so they put out this letter to parents at the school, alerting them that it's not the student, it's the relative of the student, and that the student's not showing any symptoms, but I guess the relative is. But it's still a suspected case. It's not a confirmed case. There have only been 2 confirmed cases in Maricopa County out of 55,000 kindergartners. All these people, there's only 2 cases in the whole county.
I just never thought measles would be the big topic in DC, for example.
I wouldn't have
Everyone
either.
has an opinion. I mean, we were talking about it yesterday here on the show. We pulled up Hillary Clinton's tweet. And did you see?
I did see her tweet.
Yeah.
I didn't know she was capable of being so funny.
I know.
Some people don't find it funny, but and she's
on the surface, grandmothers know best.
I wonder if she actually did that tweet herself. Or
I mean, I would hope so, but I think it was her. Just the style of it. I always feel like you can tell when it's not the person tweeting. I felt that way about Eminem. I'm a big Eminem fan, and early on in my Twitter days, I followed him. But it would just seem like very generic, promotional. I'm like, he's not writing this. These need to be a little more angry or something.
Back to our topic.
Back
to the numbers here.
Back to measles.
They also break it out for 6th graders in addition to kindergartners, and that's almost the exact same numbers. for people who are personally, or students who are personally exempt. Maricopa County is 5.2%, so that's basically 1 in 20 students.
So it's probably the same kids that weren't vaccinated in kindergarten, and they just continued to not.
But to enter to the school, you have to have it too. You have to have the vaccination, proof of vaccines, to go to school.
Right, I remember, but I'm just wondering, so unless they have that exemption.
Yes. Which, I mean, isn't that... It's not like they're asking you to specify your personal beliefs. Like,
right.
You don't have to write an essay. You just check the box, and
right.
that's it. But you have to have the form.
Yeah.
You have to either proof of vaccination or the exemption form because of your personal or medical issues.
I don't know. Is this all Jenny McCarthy's fault? I mean, is that wrong to ask?
You're asking the wrong guy.
No one was talking about vaccines and autism before her. I mean, at least as publicly, as vocally as... I mean, I really feel like that is part of the problem, issue. I don't know.
I don't know enough about where this all started, the anti-vaccine movement. I know it's been going on for a long time, and people have talked about links, but I think I heard today that there was a study that was published about the vaccine and an autism link, which has now been completely, refuted and sort of, tossed aside as not being good science. So, I think a lot of this is just people being paranoid, which I don't blame. It's a parent's right. If they don't want to do it, then why should they have to?
But then you could also be paranoid about your child contracting some deadly disease. I'm just saying, for example, the flu. People don't think it's deadly, but you also learned about the case of the kid who died from the flu.
Yeah, which was today.
Yeah.
We just learned about that.
Yeah, so that's just an example. Do you have any more information on that
story? On the flu, we talked to the county Department of Health on that, and it was a healthy kid who got the flu, and this year's flu strain. They don't tell us much information.
Right,
just of school age is what they told us.
Right.
They can't really release much more than that.
Right.
But they said that this kid got the flu and was hospitalized and died. And this year's flu, for the strain that's going around this year, tends to lead to more hospitalizations. That's what they've seen.
Right. Well, the whole thing is that the vaccine doesn't protect
the flu shot, yes.
against.
The county was telling us that while yes, it doesn't. This year was kind of different, and the vaccine was for a different strain of the virus. It still does help, and it's not completely ineffective. However, they don't tell us if the victim had the vaccine or not. They rarely release any personal information.
And I imagine that if the victim did have the vaccine, they probably wouldn't tell people, only because then it makes the vaccine look bad in its own way.
True.
It's like, well, this child got his or her flu shot, and then this happened. I mean, no one thinks, and when you're going. We all get the flu.
Shall we go over some more numbers, or do you want me to grab the exemption form?
Do you have it?
I do. I have it on my desk.
I want to see it. Okay,
yeah.
You go ahead and grab that, and I'm going to pull up some other information. See, okay, we don't have the feed anymore from the double shooting, so we won't have any more information on that, I don't think, before the 5 o'clock news. But make sure you do tune in to the Fox 10 News at 5 o'clock, because you will get more information on that double shooting.
This is the personal beliefs exemption form. Let's see if they can all see it. There you go. Pretty much check the box, and that's about it.
So every single box you check is the ones that you're against personally?
Yes. Well, that's basically what you're asking for an exemption.
And the anti-vaccine movement, the support, are they against all vaccines or just certain vaccines?
I really don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, I would love to I wish I got the chickenpox vaccine. I got chickenpox as a kid,
too.
And do you have any scars still?
No.
From picking? Oh, you were one of the kids that didn't pick at it?
No, my brother and I
wrap up your hand?
They did. My brother and I had it at the same time. And so we both shared a room as kids, and we got it at the same time. And so we were basically taped up so we couldn't scratch.
Right. I have one, but I have makeup on, so you can't see it. There's one on my face somewhere.
The exemption form reads pretty clearly. Arizona Department of Health Services strongly supports immunization as one of the easiest and most effective tools in preventing disease that can cause serious illness. ADHS also respects the rights of parents to decide whether or not to vaccinate their child. By state law, a child will not be allowed to attend school until either proof of immunization or a completed exemption form is submitted to the school. The information below is provided to ensure parents are informed about the risks of not vaccinating. So they have to initial, looks
Sure.
like each one that they didn't do.
And is it, I mean, and I'm just wondering, this is again a hypothetical, just a question that arises in my mind. Is it that you're personally against it, or are you just too lazy to take your kid to the doctor?
Oh, I doubt it's lazy.
Okay.
I would say it's personally
You really,
against
okay,
it.
got
Yeah,
it.
No.
Okay.
Well, and even
I'm
if
just
it's
wondering.
even if it's late, it might be
Or like
maybe it's
health
a financial
insurance, that's what I'm
issue.
talking
Yeah.
about. Sorry, I shouldn't say laziness, but choosing not to go to the doctor because, I mean, okay, nowadays, like, you're required to have health insurance.
Uh-huh. Well, there are immunization programs out there where you could probably get help at
Okay.
a very, very low cost, if
Sure.
not free. I would not even pretend to be an expert on the topic
Right.
of where to do it, but
But
I
it's,
can't imagine if you're required to have it to go to school, then there probably needs to be a way to make sure that you can do it if you don't have the means to pay for it.
Right.
That would be pretty unfair to require you to do it if you can't afford it.
No, right, of course. Or late.
When you fill out this form, you say, due to my personal beliefs, I request an exemption for my child for the required vaccine doses selected above. I'm aware that if I change my mind in the future, I can rescind this exemption to obtain immunizations for my child. And you have to agree that you're aware of all the information and that the state or county, if there's an outbreak of one of these diseases for which you cannot prove your immunity, your child may not be allowed to attend school for up to 3 weeks or until the risk period ends. So that means they'll say, go home. And you got to agree to it.
They just tweeted about this. Did you know that?
Who did?
Fox 10 News. They tweeted about how you're on here right now talking about the measles.
Why
Oh
should-
my gosh, we have 60 comments. I am a terrible person. I normally interact with our viewers
Can I see?
throughout the show, and I talk to them back and forth. And this morning, Ron Hoon and I are on, and we maybe interacted with them about 20, 25 comments through a 2.5 hour period. I've been on for about an hour, and I was so busy doing so many other things with like the shooting and then talking to John about ISIS and everything. I didn't check in with our viewers, and now I'm like 60 comments behind. But we have people like talking about the vaccine, so I want to at least touch base on that. So Ashley Gray saying vaccinate or isolate. Fanny Schmeller talking about I got a vaccine in the late 70s. Am I okay to not get another one? I'm 40. Do you have an answer for
Actually, I do
Fanny?
have an answer for that. I asked the Department of Health because when this was all happening, I said, does it last your whole life? You know, do you need to do something else? And they said it is a lifetime vaccine and it's 99% effective. For various reasons, I think you can get a booster shot.
Right.
But if you had it when you were young, it should be good for life.
For measles specifically.
For measles specifically.
Right. Because I remember getting my shots. I think I got like a hepatitis B shot as a teenager, and I remember my next shot was due in like 2050 or something. Like I still needed one in old age if I, I don't know. That's just something. Let's see. Rachel Favela, dedicated viewer. I had this talk with my friend after she had her daughter. Her entire family hasn't been vaccinated for 3 generations because of the false autism study.
Wow.
That's Rachel Favela's take. Ashley Gray saying it's very sad and dangerous that doctor tied autism to this vaccine. Fanny Schmeller saying that there was an episode of Chips in the 80s about not getting vaccinated.
Oh, really?
Are you a big fan of the show Chips?
Way before my time. However, I did see some reruns. Were you
That's what
a
I'm
big fan
saying.
of the show Chips?
No, I didn't even catch the reruns. You know what show that I was a fan of in terms of reruns? Matlock.
Good stuff.
That was on my local Fox affiliate back in Fresno. It would air from 2 to 3, and at 3 o'clock was when all the cartoons
Did you
started.
learn some valuable life lessons?
I just
from your
remember
Matlock
Matlock being
days?
really cool, and I was really sad when he died. I was like, oh no, that's my childhood. But continuing to read these comments, Rachel Favela saying, extremely sad now, lots of kids are at risk because of conspiracy. Ashley Gray saying she's never gotten a flu shot and she's never had the flu, knock on wood. Rachel Favela adding, I get one because I have asthma and had RSV as a child. I don't want my kids going through that. And she's also saying that one of her friends' family checked every single one of those boxes from the personal beliefs
Oh, really?
form. So, yeah, it seems like a lot of our viewers have an opinion on this, have experienced, something in one way or another.
Well, whooping cough is pretty much I don't know if I'd call it an epidemic level, but it's really common in California now.
Right.
Because of people not getting vaccines and, polio is one of them on the list. Which
is that even a thing anymore?
Oh, it was declared eradicated in the 70s.
That's what I'm saying. I haven't heard about polio since the last century.
Yeah, I don't know if that one's...
When
people
was
are too
the big
concerned about
polio
that.
epidemic and outbreak? Was it like the late 1800s or something?
I
don't even remember my U.S. history class anymore. But
FDR had polio.
Okay, early 1900s.
But it
Let's go with that.
was eradicated, I think, in the 1970s.
Right.
whooping cough, and then tetanus, hepatitis B, chickenpox.
And then we just got news from the Associated Press that California lawmakers proposed legislation today that will require parents to vaccinate all school children unless the child's health is in danger. So that's the only, and there's no sort of personal beliefs exemption. If this legislation
if there
goes
is a
through.
personal beliefs exemption, people certainly use it in California.
Right.
I mean, there are areas of California that don't vaccinate at all.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's this new legislation that's been proposed that would require parents to vaccinate it unless there is a health condition. Your child's health is in danger.
That's actually kind of fascinating that they would even do that there.
Well, I mean, I think it's
considering
because
they
it all
kind of take pride in the not vaccinating, it seems like.
But I mean, again, this whole thing happened at Disneyland. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad rap for Disneyland, and I know I shouldn't joke about this, but I feel like I have to tell someone.
Well, you're telling everybody now, so you might as well just spill it.
It sounds so terrible, but I was in the car listening to the radio, and I don't remember which radio station was doing it, but they were giving away free tickets to Disneyland.
And you're not going to go? But if you've been vaccinated,
No.
you're fine, right?
I just thought it was really interesting, because Disneyland's normally very expensive, but I'm just wondering, honestly, truthfully, if the Disneyland sales, like, visitation has decreased at all because of such, like, all the bad rap afterwards.
If there is a time to go, I guess it would be now
Shorter
if you
lines,
have the vaccine, right?
Shorter lines, right.
Shorter lines, if that's the case.
I don't know. I should ask my friend who works at Disneyland.
But
when did you graduate?
they said they told
when did
me
you graduate from USC?
2003.
So you know John Diaz.
I don't
Kind of.
think
Oh, he was
so.
class of 2005. Anyways, that's another topic. But
They
he
did
works at
say it was
Disneyland.
99% effective, the vaccine.
Uh-huh.
So there's that 1% chance.
It's like birth control.
1%
It's like-
chance.
Right.
We've pretty much gone through all of the lists here.
Thank you.
I'm not even going to bother to pronounce some of the other ones on there.
That's so interesting.
There are some more numbers.
Is there any number that you think is just shocking that really stands out?
Yeah, 11% of kindergartners in Yavapai County are not vaccinated.
Right.
And that's of 1,700 kindergartners, 11% are not vaccinated.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you're vaccinated.
Yes, I am.
That's why they sent you to the story.
That is true. Actually, to get more, it's personal exemption that I believe it's for. They break it out here by coverage levels for them individually.
Depending on which.
And like in Maricopa County, it looks like specifically measles, 93.7% vaccination. So 93.7% of kindergartners in Maricopa County have been vaccinated for measles.
Mhm.
So that leaves 6.3% not vaccinated for
Mhm.
measles. Now, the personal exemptions, I'm assuming as a whole, is 5.1%. So that's everything.
Right.
But you can check the boxes, and it looks like 6.3% are choosing to not get or to be exempt from the measles vaccine, which is still about 1 in 20.
Mhm.
It's kind of a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so Yavapai County is pretty high, and Yuma is by far the lowest at 0.7%.
Mhm. Well, Andrew, thanks for that update.
Anytime.
I feel like I should lighten things up.
I think you should too.
I think I should tell people
Too
about
much
how
talk of disease.
Well, Staples is buying Office Depot. Did you know that?
I did not.
Breaking news today.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's neutral. It's at least a little lighter than everything we've
So
talked about.
Does that mean the selection of staplers is going to be smaller?
At Office Depot? But
Anywhere.
Staples is buying it. So wouldn't Staples... If Staples is buying Office Depot, then doesn't that mean... Let's see. I don't know. $6 billion to buy Office Depot. So I felt like I wanted to tell our viewers because everyone out there probably lives near one of the stores.
Definitely. I do.
And then there's also other news that I wanted to share with our viewers. Aside from that, did you know that Scottsdale police are looking to track down P. Diddy or Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, whoever you want to...
For what?
Apparently he had some
A
sort of
Super Bowl brawl?
altercation during the Super Bowl Saturday night. So I'm going to pan on over to our trusted source, TMZ, who we work with a lot. And so this information came out late last night, early this morning. Diddy wanted for Super Bowl party brawl with loudmouth fan Now, Scottsdale police want to at least talk to Diddy. We don't actually know if he's, we don't know exactly to what extent he's involved in this situation, but the accuser claims that Diddy was supposed to host a party at this nightclub on Saturday night, and then first of all, he didn't show up until like 1 in the morning, and then when he did get there, he only hung out in VIP. He didn't really get on a stage, and then this individual says he was mad because he paid $100 to see Diddy, so then apparently he decided to get in his face and cuss Diddy out. Now, there's video obtained by TMZ. You can hear this guy berating Diddy, and then they end up face to face. Donaldson claims that when that's when Diddy punched him in the face. The video cuts out as Diddy allegedly throws the blow. I want to click on it now because I'm intrigued. Oh, TMZ. Always have the most breaking information when it comes to entertainment. How do I play it? Why won't it play?
I don't know.
Come on, TMZ. Work with me. It should appear right there. TMZ. Maybe we don't. Let me just do one more refresh. And if it doesn't work this time, well, at least I've... Oh, wait. All right, well, that video is not beautiful.
This is some riveting video.
Maybe the nightclub was really dark and it's actually happening right behind.
Is this what's supposed to happen after you got punched?
Blackout. Good one. That's a good one, Andrew.
I try.
Well, guys, I'm sorry I don't have that video for you. It's unfortunately
Best
not
of luck
loading.
with that.
But I felt like it was an important topic to tell people because it has that Scottsdale tie.
Definitely.
Diddy wanted in Scottsdale.
I wish Scottsdale PD the best at tracking him down for that.
All right, Andrew, thanks so much for joining me. And viewers, I actually feel really bad that I didn't go back and read your comments during the show. So I want to go back. I don't think I'm going to be able to get through all of them because there's like 60 that I have to go through. But I do want to get some of your thoughts on some of the stories, that we were talking about. So now Fanny Schmeller chimed in on the red light camera bill. Now this bill essentially would prevent law enforcement, local authorities, and state agencies from using photo enforcement systems. Basically, if you're getting caught by a red light camera, you won't get cited for it, is what this bill intends to do. Now, earlier, I did play some of the clip with the state senator who sponsored this bill, but then I did cut out earlier to show you the live scene of that double shooting. Well, I want to play that video for you guys again. And that way, you guys can hear everything that she has to say without interruption. Again, this is Kelly Ward.
Reason for sponsoring this bill, SB 1167.
1167 is very important because I think it's a constitutional issue. Our right to privacy, our right to face our accusers are taken away by cameras doing law enforcement rather than sworn officers.
Someone brought up a point, I'm not sure if it was you, saying that an officer has discretion, and that's an important part of law enforcement.
Yes, I think there were many people who discussed that during committee today, during quite a lengthy testimony there. And it is true. The cameras have no discretion. You're over by 0.1 second and you get a ticket. Officers, if you get pulled over, if they even pull you over for turning left on a yellow, can ask you what's going on, or they could also find out if you might be committing some other crime, driving under the influence, something else. Cameras can't do that.
And is your ultimate point that these cameras are more about money for the municipalities that use them?
Well, I believe that is true. I mean, the constitutional issue is number one for me, being a freedom-loving, liberty-loving Arizonan. I believe in our Constitution first and foremost. And but I do think that sometimes those are used as revenue generators, and it gives a perverse incentive to giving tickets.
And one question I want to ask you, because I'm going to get the other side of this in a little while, and I'm sure they're going to say that this is about public safety and you're putting people at risk. You shut these cameras off. How do you respond to those folks, and what would your answer would be as far as putting more officers out there on the street?
Right. I mean, I'd love to have more officers out there on the street. I think there are a plethora of studies that are done by independent agencies, not associated with red light camera companies, that show that those cameras actually increase accidents. They increase accidents. There's also other studies out there that say if we want to decrease accidents, and they've done it in Georgia, all we need to do is increase the length of yellow lights by 1 second and accidents dramatically decrease. That is a much better strategy to use rather than using unconstitutional cameras to monitor citizens who may or may not be breaking the law.
We've seen this one come up to almost every legislative session.
Yes.
Has it gotten this far in the past, or do you expect that it will end up on Governor Ducey's desk?
I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for sure, and I'm going to work really hard to make sure that happens. I think that last year it didn't fail in committee, so we're one step closer to getting it to the desk.
All right, so there you heard from Kelly Ward, that is the state senator who is sponsoring that bill again that would prevent law enforcement, state and local authorities from basically citing you due to images acquired through the red light cameras. Now, I actually had a number of viewers chime in via YouTube, so I want to go back to that and see what you guys were saying online. So Fanny Schmeller saying the worst thing you can do is take away a camera catching people running red lights. They need to place cameras on off ramps to deter traffic. Wrong way drivers too. Yes, I agree with you. The wrong way driving situation is actually terrible and so harmful to the public as well. Fanny Schmeller adding that if they can make a camera that lets you know when you ran a red light, they can devise a system to let people know they're going the wrong way. I think solar roadways need to be considered. Ashley Gray chimes in and completely agrees with the idea of solar roadways. She thinks, especially for the state of Arizona, it would be a huge investment for the state. All right, let me just scroll up and see what you guys were posting here. Lots of conversation here, I think, between Fanny Schmeller, Ashley Gray, giving their input on a number of these stories that we were talking about. Let's see. Joshua J. Friend. I'm wondering if he commented, this was 35 minutes ago. I'm not sure if he's still watching right now, but he, I believe, was talking about the incident that occurred at 48th Street and Baseline, saying that he was currently right next to this. If anyone has any questions, I'll try to answer them. Sorry if I was not... sorry that we did not see these comments earlier. Again, it was just kind of chaotic today. Let's see. Uneasy Rider wondering, will this be another botched police state operation in the middle of town? The risk may outweigh the reason. Rachel Favela chiming in on our ISIS conversation, the one that John Hook and I had, is what ISIS did to the pilot the same thing Boko Haram is doing to villages in Africa. Are they linked together or fighting for different reasons? There's so many terror groups out there. Uneasy Rider adding, why do we cry over this poor man when souls by the thousands have been exterminated in recent years? We dare to go further in true history. You do not want to go there. War is a racket. Let's see. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm just scrolling and just picking out some of the comments. I kind of wish I was reading it as the stories were going on. That way I would, because I can't really link all of these individual comments to which topics we were talking about. But let me just do one more refresh. And it looks like I've pretty much scrolled through all your comments. And so just to give you guys an update, I did tell you about the red light bill. There's also another bill being considered to ban texting and driving statewide. There's certain local jurisdictions that already have bans in effect, but this would force a statewide ban on texting and driving. Arizona, along with only 2 other states in the country, do not have a statewide enforcement on texting and driving. So that is something else that's being considered. Nicole Garcia is covering that story, and she should have updates in the 5 o'clock newscast on Fox 10. So make sure you tune in to that in just about a half an hour, because we'll have updates on both of these bills, the red light bill and the texting and driving bill, as well as the double shooting out of Scottsdale that we brought you live here breaking on Fox 10 News Now. We'll hear from Andrew and his measles story. We'll hear more about the murder-suicide out of Scottsdale from Mia Garcia, and I know that Steve Kraft, Fox 10's very own Steve Kraft, will have an update on the Jodi Arias case at 5:30 on the Fox 10 News then. So make sure you tune in for that, and this has been your Fox 10 News Now update. Thanks so much for joining us, guys, and watching and sticking with us and interacting. Again, I apologize for not checking the YouTube feed as much as I could have, as much as I normally do on this show, but I promise I'll be back tomorrow, and I will monitor our YouTube comments more carefully, because I love interacting with you guys as the conversation goes on and as we're having this dialogue. So thank you guys for watching. Again, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Fox10Phoenix. You just hit the subscribe button, and that way you will stay updated on all the breaking news as it happens, and not only the breaking news, but all the discussions that we have here in the newsroom with myself and other anchors and reporters, and you guys as well. We love including you guys in the conversation. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.